Stocks Down Under. My name is Mark Kennis, one of the founders of Stocks Down Under, and today we've got Coby Hanoch, CEO of Weebit Nano, that we're talking to. Hello, Coby.
Hey, Mark.
So you just published your quarterly. I've got two questions about your quarterly, and then really, as always, we like to look forward, right, in terms of what the future is bringing for Weebit. But just before we do that, two questions about the quarterly. One is about the R&D expenditure. I think it's fair to say that maybe the market was a little bit spooked by the number in there because it was higher than usual. But maybe you can talk a little bit about that, why that happened. And you talked about this last week in the CEO session you did. But what is probably more interesting, actually, is sort of looking at the next couple of quarters to see what sort of a normalized R&D level we might expect from your collaboration with Leti.
The long-term shareholders are already used to the fact that we have some quarters where it seems like we're not spending anything on R&D, and then other quarters where suddenly it goes up. And those that are a little bit more observant notice that it normally happens in the December timeframe, that suddenly, you know, we have a lot of R&D payments. It's the end of the budget year for Leti. And so, I mean, as you know, most of our R&D spending goes to projects that we do at Leti, and they're paid on milestones, achievement of milestones. And if you look back in the previous quarters, people were asking me, "You're not spending any money on R&D." So it averages out. At the end of the day, you need to look at it on a yearly basis and not on a quarterly basis. I think that would be a much better way to look at it. And if you look at the total expenses last year, you can see that with the 72 million that we have currently in the bank, that's more than enough for 2+ years moving forward. So we're now feeling very good about the money that we have in the bank, about our ability to achieve the projects. We're ramping up more projects at Leti, of course, and doing more R&D. By the way, we hired a lot of R&D people. So over time, there's more and more R&D that's done by Weebit relative to Leti, but still, you know, the key is all of the wafers running through the fab at Leti and a lot of the other projects we do with Leti.
Okay, and another thing that we should probably look at on an annual basis is revenues. So you recorded first revenues in Q4 from two different customers.
Mm-hmm.
So roughly $500,000, if I'm correct. Slightly less than that, but approximately $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Looking out in the next couple of quarters, how should we look at that? Is that going to be very lumpy as well, or does it even out, or is it milestone based? So you never know when it's going to hit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think I've been trying to set the right expectations. We're obviously very happy that we got these first payments. You know, it really shows that people are seeing the value of our technology. But these are first payments. You know, normally license fees and things like that are paid up front. Obviously, when you're just a new technology and everyone has a million concerns about it, et cetera, they ask to split it into multiple payments and have it paid over time based on different milestones and so on. So, you know, you basically can see, you know, achievement of milestones, and over time we will be getting, you know, these license fees, additional payments of these license fees, and NRE, of course. You know, we're doing the technology transfer and so on. At this point, the revenue is not going to be, you know, a steady growing flow. There will be quarters where we might not have any revenue. There will be quarters where suddenly there will be a peak. It's still just the very early days. And, you know, these deals, first of all, they take time. You know, I think I've been setting the expectation that in 2024, we will be getting more revenue payments, obviously. But it's very hard. We can't really give guidance yet because it's going to be small payments. It's not going to be tens of millions of dollars or anything like that. It's going to be small payments that come in over time as we achieve milestones, as we sign up more foundries and IDMs and customers, product companies, etc.
if you can just focus on the first two foundries that you signed, plus global foundries, which you're collaborating with, can you talk us or update us on the progress with each of those three?
Yeah, so I think DB Hitek, Dongbu is really the very exciting thing that we're doing now. They are already totally committed. They signed the agreement. We're transferring the technology, getting ready with the module to tape out everything that we need to them. There's a lot of stuff that we need to prepare for them. It's a great cooperation. They are really very positive and cooperative, and we're visiting them in Korea on a regular basis now, and so on. So that's really moving forward nicely. Yeah, I think I already stated, to a certain level, my disappointment in, we have with SkyWater, we reached qualification. It was obvious to me that, once you're qualified, you run forward and you start bringing the product companies. Unfortunately, SkyWater is, and people who follow on SkyWater can see they are in difficult times right now. They brought in a new COO to try to fix things and make it, put them back on track. I had a very good meeting with him, but he basically, said right now he needs to focus on the few things that can really put them on track. They got a big payment from the CHIPS Act from the US, and he's just totally focused on doing that and making sure that that money comes in, that they meet those milestones for the CHIPS Act and so on. And at this point, he basically said they have difficulty to implement those IPs that are missing in their library. That we've been talking to some big customers, some big name companies, and so on. We had some agreements that were really ready almost for signature. We closed already business terms, etc. And then they got stuck on the fact that some IPs are missing at SkyWater. And so right now with SkyWater, we are continuing to talk to customers, to multiple customers, people who don't need those IPs. Obviously, it's more restricting for us, but we will be pushing that forward. In parallel, the big focus, and SkyWater is not a very big foundry. Dongbu, DB Hitek is much bigger, much more serious. They have a lot of big name customers behind them, and that's the big focus. With GF, we got the wafers now. We're testing them. We have good initial results, which is very promising. GF is trying to define its strategy for ReRAM. As people know, they also acquired all the desktop technology, and they're trying to decide how they move forward. I think the fact that they're working with us and with their internal technology can show you they're not really competitors. Like many people are always afraid that the foundries will be competitors. They're not. And we're continuing to show them good results. And, I hope we will be moving forward with them. And our goal, of course, is to achieve some licensing agreement with them.
So just on SkyWater, you mentioned certain IPs missing from their library. How easy is it to potentially get those customers that need those specific IPs? How easy is it for you to potentially bring them to, say, DBH or GF or another foundry to still get that business?
Actually, that's one of the things that we're doing. With some of them, we are already talking to them about just going to other foundries, and that's part of it. People, the decision to move to another foundry isn't an easy one, but at the same time, it's something that is done, and so that's part of what we're doing.
Okay, you mentioned competitors for competitive technology. So obviously TSMC has got ReRAM that is apparently being put into iPhones. You've got Adesto at GF. UMC's got a ReRAM product. I'm not sure how big it is for them in terms of customers, but can you sort of paint a picture, the competitive picture, where the rest of the pack sit versus Weebit, where you guys are, and who's ahead, who's sort of maybe a little bit behind, or if you can talk in those sorts of terms.
So, first of all, those three that you mentioned are all foundries, so I think the first thing that people should always remember, foundries will never give their technology to other foundries or IDMs. So all of the other guys basically, and everyone is looking for ReRAM right now. When I say we're engaged with the majority of the big foundries and IDMs, that's exactly the point. They won't get it from TSMC. So we're making very good progress with the others. But in terms of, for your question, TSMC has a good technology. Obviously, TSMC is a very, very strong company. We know that they have it in some products. I don't know how fast they're ramping it up. I know that, we had customers that came to us that said, they wanted TSMC to tailor the ReRAM to their specific needs. One of the key things you always hear me talk about, the NRE side of things. People want to embed the ReRAM into their chip, and they want to have it meet the requirements of their chip, to be most optimal for their chip. TSMC is a foundry. They're not, they're not a ReRAM company. So when people come to them and say, we want you to give us a ReRAM which is tailored for, whatever, ultra low power or other, speed, size, whatever, TSMC is very reluctant to start investing those resources because that's not what they do. They sell wafers. They just want, the ReRAM is an enabler for them to sell wafers. So we've had already people come to us and complain and say they want to work with Weebit because Weebit has an amazing analog and digital design team that can tailor the product, the technology to them. And that's one of our big strengths. UMC, they actually licensed the technology from Panasonic. Meanwhile, Panasonic sold that division to Nuvoton. The best that we can see, there's no real support for that technology anymore. I mean, it's qualified, it's there, and people can use it. We still need to see how much that moves forward. In any case, ReRAM requires a lot of R&D work, still improving the technology all the time. We'll see what happens at UMC. I never underestimate, competition, but we'll have to see what happens there. GF, I already told you about, they're working in parallel with us and with the CBRAM, and, we'll see, we'll show them the results, and we hopefully everything will move forward nicely.
Right. It's important to stress, by the way, Coby, you mentioned that foundries, they just want to sell wafers, right? That's how they get paid. And typically they're agnostic to the type of technology that is used specifically because it's all about the design that then gets manufactured, which is how they make their money. So is it a fair assumption to say that potentially your ReRAM could be adopted by any of those foundries that already have it, including TSMC, by the way? So just put it in their library, depending on what customers want, they can just put it in. They wouldn't be too precious about this, I suspect.
Well, you can see already that in GF we're working in parallel, and it's not clear which way they'll go with one or the other or both or whatever, But with obviously, TSMC wants to sell wafers. That's what they do. That's how they make money. They have multiple versions of processors in their library. They have multiple versions of Bluetooth in their library. They have multiple versions of almost any IP in their library because they just want. And by the way, the team that maintains these libraries is called the enablement team. There's a reason why the foundries call them the enablement teams. They're just there to enable customers to buy more wafers. And customers, when they do a system on a chip, which has so many different components on them, the customer wants to focus on the heart of the system where they put their IP, where they put their brains. Bluetooth or even processors today, people have already done that. There's no sense in reinventing the wheels. So the product companies, when they want to do the SoC, they want to have as many of the other, this puzzle, if you want to think of it that way, they want to have as many of these components available to them. And if the foundry can offer those to them, they just save time. They can tape out faster. So that's why these enablement teams exist. They're just there to provide as many of the IPs as possible. and enable the customers to achieve tape out faster and pay for wafers. So yeah, that's really the focus. The day that Weebit comes with a customer who wants to work with our ReRAM and not with TSMC because we tailor the module better and so on, TSMC will only ask how many wafers. Now, obviously, I'm a little exaggerating because there is all of the technology transferred to our TSMC and going through the licensing and everything. But at the end of the day, what TSMC will look at is the ROI and how many wafers they'll be selling.
That's good to know. So you mentioned the CHIPS Act or how SkyWater is benefiting from that. The CHIPS Act, of course, is the US Act where there's a lot of, I think, 50 billion US sort of earmarked for projects to bring semiconductor manufacturing and design back to US shores. So obviously SkyWater being a US foundry would benefit from that. I think they've got a couple of deals already. But how can Weebit benefit from the CHIPS Act, potentially through SkyWater, I'm assuming, but are there other ways that you guys can take advantage of that?
Yeah, so first of all, it's not just the US. In Europe, actually, they have their own CHIPS Act, and it's called CHIPS Act in Europe as well. And they have in other countries these incentives. Weebit actually just this week applied with one of the product companies to a project in the CHIPS Act to get CHIPS Act funding from the government. Hopefully we'll have that approved, and that project will eventually become a product that uses ReRAM technology. So it still is, we just applied, but we're definitely looking at those ways of getting projects as well. And we're involved now in a project that is applying for European CHIPS Act. So yeah, the governments are funding so much, wanting to see more technology and things developed in their countries, and we're looking at it, and we're cooperating with product companies or other partners to apply for these projects as well.
Just on your commercial efforts, right? So you're talking to a lot of foundries. That takes up a lot of hours, from the salespeople that you've got, from your time. So with everything that's going on, you must be driving sort of the sales effort. How are you managing that? How are you handling it? And if you're expanding the teams, where are they expanding? Which geographies?
Yeah, so my background, I was VP sales for many years. So originally I was acting VP sales at Weebit. I still am very involved in the sales activities, but we are now working on ramping up the team, bringing people in different territories. So we're now really putting an emphasis on growing the sales team now that we also have DB Hitek and some of the other big foundries and IDMs that we're making very good progress now. So we need to start thinking of how do we push this forward, and part of it is growing the sales team. Yeah.
Right. Can you paint the picture there, Coby, how that works? So you've got the contact with the foundries and the IDMs, obviously, but ideally now the product companies, electronics companies, or whatever it is, a mobile phone, I don't know, this is a whole range of companies that will use chips these days, of course. But how is your sales team sort of set up? So there's a lot more product companies than there are foundries. So is it geared more towards product companies trying to sort of explain the benefits of ReRAM in their particular products, or how should we look at that?
Yeah, you have this chicken and the egg type situation here where the foundries, they know they need ReRAM, but they're always very practical. They want to see which customers, which product companies are actually coming and will be putting money there. So you want to push, and obviously the product companies, they want to know that they have somewhere to manufacture before they engage, and that you're qualified and all of that. So it's kind of really working on both sides at the same time. We're putting a big focus, and this year our very big focus will be on the foundries and IDMs. You really need to have these companies move forward, ramp up our technology. We need to transfer the technology. We need to qualify it. I mean, that's the basis. Once we do that, each one of these guys has hundreds of customers behind them, and that's when we'll be seeing the big boom happen once we're qualified in some of these big guys. But the big guys, the big foundries and IDMs, well, IDMs, they have their own internal product, so it's not IDMs, but the foundries want to see customers. And so we're working in parallel with customers. There are customers that are very eager to have ReRAM, and so we're working with them to push the foundries, and it's kind of working on both sides. And that's where now we even in some of the territories we have, we announced a long time ago already that we have a sales representative in Korea, and they were very helpful in getting the DB Hitek deal done. We're bringing on board additional people to help us in other territories.
Right. Okay. So specifically on those prospects, the top foundries, IDMs potentially. And I know this is very tough and in terms of answering the question, but in 2024, what are the things that we should be looking forward to in terms of new deals coming on? Which areas is mostly the foundries you suspect, or the IDMs? How should we look at 2024, which I suspect will be a great year given the progress you've already made? But how should we look at that? Would it be sort of earlier in 24, later in 24? And I'm trying to get a sense of what might happen this year.
As I said, the big focus right now is going to be on foundries and IDMs. This is really, an investment in infrastructure, basically. You need to have these big guys manufacturing your technology. Once they're manufacturing your technology, and once you qualify there, that's when all of their customers are exposed to it, and they start feeling more comfortable with it, etc. So if I use DB Hitek as an example, we are already working with some customers that either already manufacture there or are open to considering to moving there. The customers will obviously be very cautious. We haven't even taped out at DB Hitek yet, not to mention qualification, but we're pushing them in that direction. DB Hitek is seeing that interest, and so we're doing that. In 2024, my goal is to have several agreements signed with some of these major guys. Each one of these agreements is just, you have no idea how difficult it is to negotiate and push these things forward. It's really so it's a complex negotiation. The details and everything. Each one of these deals with DB Hitek, it took us almost 2 years to close the deal. The other deals that we're negotiating now, some of them are, we've been working on them for a long time. I believe, I expect that we will be signing some additional deals. My goal and what I stated to the team is by the end of 2024, we need to be the undisputed leader in ReRAM. We need to be already in several foundries and IDMs, and people need to look at Weebit really as, this is it. This is the company that will be pushing forward. We have, and this is something that I keep stressing in the meetings that I have. You need such a unique team when you're working on ReRAM. You need to have a very strong device team that develops the bit cell, the physics of things, and then you need to have a strong process team that basically develops the chemical process of how do you manufacture this thing, how do you make this thing work. You need to have the analog team that puts basically the whole array together and controls it, and then the digital team that interfaces to the rest of the world, and you have to have the test and characterization, and each one of these teams, you really need to be an expert in it. We just hired even more PhDs for the device and process teams. We have more than 10 PhDs already working on this. It's very, very deep work. the design as well. Weebit, I think, is very well known now, and people are recognizing Weebit's design team as, I dare say, the leader already in the world in that sense. So, we have what it takes to become the leader. Even TSMC, as you can understand, they have an amazing device and process team there that they're working with, but the design side is not their big focus. So my goal is really by the end of the year that we'll have some additional contracts. We won't have with everyone, it's just taking a long time to get each one of them on board, but we will have some additional agreements, and we will be building that brand name of this is the company for ReRAM.
Coby, I have got one last question for you, and then I'll let you get back to selling ReRAM. This is specifically about artificial intelligence. That's been a buzzword, obviously, in the last few years. With NVIDIA shooting the lights out, I think ARM reported results today that were pretty good as well, although that's more diversified. But AI is on every chip company's in focus, basically. ReRAM's got a few very specific properties that make it a good product for neuromorphic processing. But can you talk a little bit about that? Where does ReRAM fit into the AI arena, if you can call it that?
Well, it fits in multiple ways, and this is a very exciting domain for us as well. We talked about it already way before AI became such a popular buzzword, when we were talking about the fact that ReRAM is a great fit for neuromorphic computing. But really, if you look at what's happening in AI over time, there was a period when everyone was sure that AI will be done in the data centers. You just, you collect whatever data you want, you send it over to those big, huge data centers, they crunch everything, they send you back responses. And people were talking about, the dumb edge devices that really don't do anything. I think over the past couple of years, people understand that there's a lot of stuff that you want to be done on the edge device. You don't want to lose the time that it takes to send data over to the data center and then bring it back. So in AI, there are two key domains. There's the learning, and then there's the inference. There's the teaching the AI whatever you wanted to basically build that knowledge base, and AI learns how to do things. And then there's the inference, where it basically takes the knowledge that it has and applies it to the challenges at hand. It turns out that the inference side, you don't need to write a lot, you need to read a lot, and that's exactly what non-volatile memories are. They are perfect for this, in the sense that they don't lose the data. So even when you unplug them from power, they retain all of the knowledge that the AI device needs to have. And then our specific advantage is we're so fast. So we're non-volatile, we're very fast, we're low power. A lot of these edge devices use batteries, and even I don't know if to say worse, better actually. Many of them are now trying to work on ambient energy, just get the energy from thin air, if you want to think of it that way. And so you need to have something that can operate at really very low power, at ultra low power. You need to have it very fast. By the way, the speed is critical also, because if it operates fast, it can go back to sleep very quickly and not use up energy. So it kind of goes together. ReRAM is an amazing solution for this, and we are looking at that. We actually, one of the key targets of Weebit for 2024 is refining a clear strategy on AI and how we work with the different players in this field and how we push this forward.
Right. Sounds like an awful lot is happening at the same time, Coby. So like I said earlier, I suspect 2024 is going to be a great year and a good setup for whatever's coming after that. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time. And like I said, go back to selling ReRAM. And we'll keep a close eye on the ASX announcements for anything that's happening.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark.